Welcome everybody to join the Discover Daoism online class today. The third class for today's topic. We talk about Daoist tools and Daoist artifacts. And who is new, I'm Liu from the German Daoist Association. In the moment I'm at the Wudang Temple in Germany, Yujianguan, and also I am teaching at the Lause College in Germany. And this class is also, or the topics of these classes are also part of our basic foundation program. So if you're interested in the Daoist education, you could just look on our website. You will find it online. Okay, let's start with the class. Today is about Daoist tools and artifacts. And as always, I prepared some photos for you, some presentation actually today. And we're gonna start with what is Daoist tools or what is a Daoist artifact. In general, we have certain items we're gonna use for certain activities. Of course, it's very general, but there is instruments we call yueqi, or several ritual instruments like the woodfish and such. You only use during the altar, but you also have different other tools which is not well known, like for example some artifacts, some tools where you do a talisman or different other artifacts we're gonna talk about in this class today. And if you have any questions, we have a few minutes after my presentation to discuss your questions. And if you have a notepad or anything, just write your questions down so you're not gonna forget them at the end. Okay, we're gonna start and go into the first part. So the yueqi instruments. And for this, I'm generally introducing first the, so maybe a thumb up if you can see. If you cannot see, thumb down. Can you see as a list with the instruments? Okay, so I prepared a list for you. It's in Chinese, don't worry. I'm going to explain the most interesting parts of this. So we start with the first picture. It is a little bell, and who knows me or knows my classes, I'm very fond of this instrument. It's a very good and easy to use tool. It's a very basic tool, and we call this the didong, or also faling sometimes. There's several words, of course, for the same tool or the same item. And in general, you have a grip here and a three peaked or spiked head here, and the bell on the bottom part. And it is also representing the three parts. On the top is representing also the three clarities. It has also several meanings for different lineages, but in the standard way, we have the Daoist bells. They look like this, like the three fork. And I also have a few other photos for you to see a little bit more detail, because this is a very general photo. Let me see. So you should all see a golden bell now. If you don't, please let me know. No golden bell? Simon is shaking his head. Okay, which means I need to press something on here. Oh yeah, I got it. Here you go. I'm also becoming more professional all the time. So now I hope you can see my bell. Yes, thumb up means good. So you see, this is a very new bell, and you see it a little bit more closer, and the size for you to see the size with the hand. The handle is basically the size of the hand, and this is a polished or blank polished one, and should be coming. I have to press. Here you go. This one is a little bit older, as you can see, is already used, and here you can see that there's on the side there's some symbols on here, and this one, and around here there should be some symbols. Unfortunately, this photo is not as clear as I reviewed it at first, but maybe you use your imagination and you can see some parts here have symbols on this, and this is also very important for keeping this tool protected. Yeah, you use this also to connect or to connect with the deity, with the divine, and this is also speak with a lot of symbols, Taoist symbols and talisman. All right, let's go back to. So I'm sure everybody can see now the list again. So either you already have a thumb up. I hope you enjoy the class wherever you are. Stay healthy and learn with me together. The next on the list we have here is the so-called mui or woodfish. It's a very common and very well-known instrument in the Western world. We use this for rhythmic drumming, for reciting the scriptures. I always have to go back into this one here and push this. So the woodfish, this is a very new product. Usually is made of wood. That's why it's called woodfish. But nowadays, so if you want to purchase one, be careful. They look like wood, but it's in fact plastic. Sometimes the cheaper one, you should not look into that. But the woodfish is usually used peach wood. Sometimes you find some other woods, but peach wood is quite common. You have a handle, you have a little hammer here and a little cushion for putting this on there. If you use the woodfish, you see it's also have different sizes. If you use the woodfish, you would hold it on the handle here and just use the hammer to hit on the big side, on the fish side, on one side. And there is an opening here, unfortunately also only from the side. You can see there's an opening here. So it's a very big opening. If you put something inside, the sound gonna be more quiet. This is also a trick we use sometimes for the classes. If everybody is using the same instrument or everybody's using different instruments, and it sounds quite chaotic. So there's like a little muscle, and put a little piece of paper inside or a little sheet of cloth, so you will not wake up your neighbors in the night. So we have the next part of our Daoist list is the Fagu, the gu or the drum, the so-called drum. You see here it's vertical, it's put on a stand and the person drumming it this way. And this can also vary from sizes. Usually in big temples, you have a junglo and a gulo. You have a bell tower and the drum tower. And these drum and bell, the instruments are huge, and they use huge hammers to drumsticks, use huge drumsticks. And also for the bell, they use a big piece of wood to ring the bell. But on the altar or during the ceremony, we use a small sized drum, and this is basically maybe 80 centimeters in diameter, if it's a good guess. But here's also a second version or a different version. It's the stand. Yeah, you see this, of course, also vary in sizes, and this one is a very beautiful one, and basically in a little hanging mechanism here. You can basically roll it and lift it up, And also you see here have a little bell attachment. And this is why this kind of this kind of stand is important, because you don't use the drum alone, but usually the drummer also using this bell here, like the bell and drum tower, just in a small size. This one here has a nice attachment for the notes. And yes, of course, there's notes for the drum too. And let's see if I have another photo of the drum. Yes, here's a wonderful example of a little drum, a hand drum. It's just a handle basically. You have the stick and the skin, and you can walk freely around with this. And yeah, sometimes you have ceremonies where you have to walk around, and if there is a small drum, it's quite handy. The big drum we just saw on the photo before has rolls or little wheels attached to the frame, and it can be rolled. But if you are in the mountain, how you want to roll this in the mountain street? So usually in mountain places where you have to walk around for the ceremonies, you have a little mobile kind of little drum. Okay. Go back very quick to the list. We're going to skip this one here because this is wrong on this list, on this position. We go to the next instrument. It's called the qing, or the singing ball. Sometimes you use also the word gong in English, but singing ball, like many people told me, is the right word. And the singing bowl is beside the woodfish, and the little bell, which I showed at first, the more important instrument. So if you're alone practicing on an altar, on your altar, you use the woodfish is as major instrument, and the little bell and the gong too basically mark certain parts in the scriptures, or just making the melodies nicer of your recitation. We have the singing bowl is again, very, very different sizes, different. Here's what I mentioned before, the zhonglou, the big gong here. This is actually a small, big gong, I would say, with a smaller handle, but you see one normal man size needs to work on this. So the small singing bowl is quite easy for your home practice. Temples, not every temple has a big gong, so this is also just a very traditional kind of instrument. The zhonglou and the gulou, like I mentioned, you have in old temples and palaces. Of course, it's the buildings you see from far because they are quite tall. And why they build these? Because when they opening the ceremony, before the ceremony, they drum and ring the bell to call all the Daoists or all the practitioners to the temple hall to join the ceremonies. So this is why you have tall buildings, very big instruments, and they're loud, so you can hear them from far away. And usually they're played twice before the ceremony, maybe 10-15 minutes before that, and then maybe 5 minutes before that. And after the second time, everybody should already enter the temple hall. And the third time the drum is playing is when the ceremony starts. Okay, we have more photos. The next instrument on my list, I need to go back to the list again. Maybe there's an easier way to switch this. The next instrument on this list is the so-called leading gong or leading bell. It's the yinqing. And this is why we call this leading bell is because the woodfish person or the Daoist who plays the woodfish during the ceremony. Yeah, you have a simple setup. We come to an altar setup in the next class, but for your idea now, for your imagination, you have a setup with a straight line setup of Daoists facing towards the altar, and everybody playing their instruments facing the altar. And the woodfish person is basically the most important one because he's giving the rhythm with the woodfish, and with the other hand, he's holding this bell, this leading bell, or the yinqing, we call it yinqing. And the yinqing is also used when you bow down to give the sign. Everybody is facing forward. You don't see the people beside you. So when you're going to bow down at the same time is when the bell rings once and then go up again when it's ringing the second time. Here is how you hold it. You hold usually with one hand the handle and the little hammer with one hand. So you have the right hand with the woodfish and the left hand for this leading bell. Here we come to the next. We also skip this one here. This is a water bowl. Here we have an instrument. It's called dang, yeah, or dangcha. Sometimes you play two instruments at the same time, and the dang and the cha is what we play when we have the skills, of course. Yeah, you play both instruments at the same time because they go together. They have a rhythm. They always go together. It's called dang cha, dang cha, dang cha, dang dang cha. This is a rhythm how the teacher taught us before, and this is actually called a clang. I looked it up. It's called clang, C-L-A-N-G in English. And what you see here is a kind of cymbals. This one is the big ones, but imagine there's a small set of cymbals played together with the clang, and then it's called dangcha. So you play with one hand the cymbals and with one hand the clang. In this way, the cymbals are lying also on the cushion. One part is on the cushion facing up, and then you use only the other hand to play the instrument like this, like you put the lid on the pot, like this. You see, this is a modern. I just used some photos from the internet. I downloaded just before the class, and this one here is a very modern one with a plastic hammer. I also use this one because it's quite easy and light, and we have kind of a cymbal attached with some strings attached to a frame here with a handle so you can hold it up. There's also dangs or clangs attached to a frame which is standing on the table. And this one here is an example. Here you can see the holes basically where they attach on the frame, but you can also use this just basically holding it. It will not have the clear sound like it would be hanging, but it's also working and doing its job. All right. So like I already mentioned, the next part is the cymbals, the instruments, and this is also one more or less difficult instrument to learn, the naobo. The cymbals, the big cymbals, there's lots of rhythms you need to learn as a Daoist priest or as a Daoist practitioner who is using the instruments or practicing ceremonies. And the cymbals is actually just copper. Yeah, I guess it's copper. And they weigh a lot and they are quite huge. I have a few more photos of this. So here you see it's also very simple cymbals. They have a little hole here. This one doesn't, where they have attachment for like some cotton or clothes or some strings where you can hold them. Yeah, and usually they're so loud they overplay all the other instruments, so they're not played very very energetic, but small movements, more like this, just pushing them together in a small manner. And then when you have to stop the instrument, you just turn them around and press them against your chest so they just stop vibrating. Okay, I thought I had another photo of the cymbals. Okay. There's of course many instruments, many kind of instruments, but the basic instruments for the altar, and today's class is not about the instrument for the Daoist band, which is called the Yudui, but this is the instruments for the altar, for the priest during the ceremony, the tools or the instruments you use. In English, you say also, you name the tools of a doctor, for example, you use the word instrument. And this is also what we can use here. These items are instruments we use to do our work and to imply in our ceremony or during our practice on the altar. And these instruments, they are very basic. There's, of course, like I said, the music instruments, like the pipa, like a guitar, or you have the guqin or the flutes. For the Daoist music, usually during ceremony, you have also a Daoist music band. Maybe it's 1, 2, or 3, or maybe it's 9 or even more musicians playing the melodies, and then the Daoist priests, they can recite the text or sing the melodies. So usually during a big ceremony you have more instruments, but for the basic setup, the Zhaowangongke, for example, the morning and evening recitation, you have these 7 instruments. And what you use when you are by yourself, you can just use the woodfish and the singing bowl. And these two, if you do recite the scriptures, you can use the woodfish to give the rhythm and to mark certain words with the gong. These 2 instruments are the most basic. And of course, in ancient times, they just use a piece of wood and with another piece of wood make a rhythm, and the rhythm supports the practice. The rhythm helps you to memorize the words, and this is why we do this. We recite the scriptures with this rhythm. Sometimes you have on every word the hit on the woodfish, or you have on every second word. It's different ways of using this, but the rhythm is a kind of key for the keyhole to open the door to let all the information flow inside your brain. This is how I like to describe this, and it is always easier, and maybe you can think about it, to memorize a poem or a music song which you like, which is rhythmic, instead of a dry text of your school class or something like this. Okay. All right, so let's go to the second part of the class today, is the Fachi, or the artifacts, or the Daoist tools we use for the ceremony. And here we have, the first is the Lingqi, the so-called flag, or it's a Ling flag. And I also prepared photos for you. here you see the Ling written on the flag, and the Lingqi, the flag. I just named the words in the original name, yeah. So it's Lingqi is the ceremonial flag, and here you see have 5 different colors, because these flags represent also the 5 elements. The Wuxing, here you have black, red, yellow, white, and green, and also sometimes you see them with dragons on it, yeah, also in the different colors. These instruments are used during the ceremony. There's of course several lineages. There's so many lineages using different ways of tools that we will not have the time to explain every kind or every method here, but it's a very general tool which is used by the most Daoist lineages doing ceremonies or doing fashi. So the Lingqi, sometimes you see the priest is only holding one. Sometimes you see the altar have a stand like this. Okay, we only have 10 minutes time, I see you, so we need to make quick. I was talking again too much. Today they show it. Today they show it for the first time. Okay, then let's just look over the photos and not go back to the text. So here's a different kind of flag. This is not the same kind of Lingqi, but this is called Chuanfan, and it's also kind of a hanging flag. On many altars you see on the sides, sometimes you see also a Daoist priest holding it with a stick here. This is a stick holding it, and then also doing a ritual over the altar with this flag. Here is written Dao Fa Zerang. You have several different sentences you write on that. They are also sometimes very long. And the important part is this here, the lower strings attached here. This flag is also can be done by paper. If you, for example, don't have this flag and you need this for your ceremony, you can do it by paper, just extra for the ceremony. There is books and also tradition and researching the use of these strings here. There is a way of the deity communicating with the Daoist priest through this. And you see sometimes videos also, they are basically spectacular and go viral in the Daoist community when there is a being, which you cannot see, a non-material being, holding up these strings or knot them together, and this is the way of communicating. There's ways of explaining these signs. Okay, let's go to the next part. The chaojian or chaohu. Chaohu is a piece of wood, like slightly bended, and it's held by the priest in front of it during ceremonies, or also sometimes during the chaobai. It's the honoring the domu or the deity, and this is a special ceremony where you bow down quite a lot and also use the chaohu or chaojian. I prefer to call it chaojian. And here you see there's symbols on here, different fu, and this is a nice kind of tool, but usually the Daoist priest doesn't have this kind of fancy writing on there. It also depends on what lineage or what teacher teaches you. And here you see an older version. These are from a museum. They're very, very thin, very fine, and these are very precious for the Daoist fan or Daoist practitioner who know what this is. And they are quite old ones. And here the photo is quite small. Here you see the priest using it also during a offering ritual for the incense. There's a offering for the Cymbal, And this incense offering also use the chaojian or chaohu, this way, we're holding it this way, and then have a certain or special stepping ritual. So the next is the fa chi. This is also something you see quite often, and to explain it in a very simple way, there's a lot of fu and deity names attached on here with the huizi or the special name on all the sides, and this is also a tool you use for opening the altar. This is always on the altar to also protect the practitioner. I use this in different or in several ceremonies by myself, and this is a very common tool. The black one is the fa chi, and this one here is a different one. It's called Daoism. Yeah, you get those probably in a set. This one here is for scaring away the ghosts from the place of the ceremony or from the altar, and that's why it's called Daoism. It's a bang. It's a kind of stick or a baton, yeah, where you can hit the ghosts. But this part here is more complicated. They have a lot of symbols on here, and here you can see also a set with the Fayin and also the Lingpar. We come to that in a moment. I need to make quick, otherwise we don't have enough time. Here we have the Fajian or the Qixingjian. It's also a tool where you can use to opening the altar or also to protect the area. Here's also certain symbols on here, dragons and also Fu Qixingjian. And here you see the Daoist priest is using this also to opening the Daoist gate on the altar. And here you see also the chaojian, the way they use it usually. The Fayin, the Daoist seal stamp, is a very important tool for talisman practice, but also for the ceremony. You use the seal stamp to stamp registers and also to imply the energy of the deity, the spiritual energy. Here's a so-called yinban. It's a fu carved into a piece of wood. This is a new one, but they are very old ones. They use this also to print on papers the whole fu, not only the stamp, but this is the whole fu, the whole talisman. Here we come to the Lingpar or Lingpai in Putonghua. It is an artifact where you use or where you put as a Daoist priest, put the spiritual energy into it, invite the deity, and then you can use this also as a key to open gates or to protect the area, to draw a talisman or to use the Daoist skills, the Daoist power. Here you have a Wudang Shan, Wu Lei Ling is the 5 thunder gods. Energy implied in here. You see also several talisman on the side. There's 4 sides with talisman on here. Here have one from the bottom part, and I wanted to show you this because this is the old one, and usually the Dao master giving this tool or this artifact to his student or to the next generation master, and sometimes you have things from the prior generation master put into this artifact, like teeth or hair. So you keep the energy, the spiritual power in this artifact. Here's a very old Lingpar, and this is also how you use this like a tool. You draw something, and here you can see also okay, we have only 1 minute and 30 seconds left. And at the end, you see you have a whole set. I just showed this at the end of the class. Here is the whole set with the sword, the ling, and the daban, the Daoism, the flags here, and these are sold widely, but you can see they are all not have the real shenqi, the energy in it. So you can imagine that the Daoist master treating these tools as something very precious, and it's something we treat with respect and honor. So the Daoist tools are not just bought on the internet, on Taobao or on the eBay, but we are gifted by the master. Okay, so before we all cut off here, I would like to invite you to the next class on the 26th of May, 3 p.m., the same time GMT +2, Discover Daoism Online, and next class is about altar setup and how we approach an altar at home, how we set up an altar at home.